the majority of the online dating industry on the Christian side of things is actually run by secular companies.
What does the church need to know about online dating, and how do you know what you are clicking is trustworthy?
What's happening is these big brands like, Upward is the most popular Christian dating app. It's run by a company called Match Group. That it's an $11 billion company that owns Match.com, Hinge, and they also own Tinder, which is a casual hookup style type dating app. And they actually took the same technology from Tinder, took the word Tinder off, stamped Christ into the branding and said, hey, here's your Christian dating app. And so it uses the exact same matchmaking style, a lot of the watered down values, the inappropriate content, all of that carried over. And the tough part is this is the most popular Christian dating app in the country right now. Apps like Christian Mingle, they're owned by a massive publicly traded company out of Germany. Again, not Christian run. And as you kind of go down the ladder, that's the situation. And so I think that's the first thing that they need to know. And the second thing that I think is really important is that there are dangers that come with online dating when it comes to things like romance scams, which is where people will impersonate somebody else and then they'll build a connection and then try and get you to send them money for things like that. And this happens on the secular and the faith-based side, and it happens in person too. But the part that I think ministry leaders need to know is that Christian singles are the highest value target for these scammers. And the reason for that is because of as Christians, our nature of that we're giving, that we're caring, that we're trusting, and even to strangers, because as we're trying to be more like Jesus, to be more like Christ, those are things we do. And, and the one good thing about a lot of this is that these pitfalls, these dangers, a lot of them are easily preventable through education. And so it's not like you have to, get a 4-year degree to understand how to protect yourself from this, but just helping singles to be aware of the dangers out there, what the red flags are, where the safe places for them to go, how they can truly protect their heart. That's really what the State of Dating is about. And so we ran it as originally as like a live event where we had hundreds of pastors, ministry leaders come together, and we just shared all this information, real world examples. And what we did after that is we actually built that into like a ministry training where churches can run this as an event themselves, completely free. We're not charging for it. We have all the resources they need, the creatives, the small group materials, the training videos, everything like that. So it's really kind of, the idea is for it to be plug and play. So if a church says, hey, you know what, we should be educating our singles a little bit better about the state of dating or what online dating is and how they can protect themselves, instead of them having to go out and do the research themselves and try and figure out what the industry looks like, because most pastors have been, if they've been married for 5, 10, 20 years, they're not going to know anything about online dating. And so it's understandable that they're not going to have that information source. And that's something I've learned from talking with pastors and really what inspired us to do this. And so that's really what the State of Dating is. And like I said, it's completely free. And we'd love to get that information out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite shows on YouTube is Catfished.
Yep.
So I have educated myself so much on this
Right.
because I happen to know, maybe 1 or 2 people that do go online and date.
Right.
And I get scared for them because I know that there's so many catfishers out there, and there's and when you watch even that program, you see that there are so many people that are from, other countries dating,
right.
like you said, very honest Christians that really need, they want to meet somebody, then they feel bad because that person doesn't have money or whatever they're begging for on that side. But it's all just a business, and it's a business in a big room. So, so the thing that I'm really concerned about is that how do you show people, how do you show them that what you have is trustworthy compared to things like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that in the education piece of it, we really have to get very, very practical. We say things maybe like, hey, protect yourself, make sure that they're the person they are, do this. But if we don't give people very, very practical steps, show them real world examples, one of the things on the state of dating that we share is an interview with a lady who was actually scammed, and you can hear in the interview with her how, like, maybe when you start at the beginning, you're like, oh, there's no way I would ever fall for this, but you start to hear her explain how this person built the trust. She talks about how they prayed together, how they talked about what happened at church, they sang together, and they built this connection. And then he was having these problems where he needed money for stuff, and she felt like she was doing the right thing. So a lot of it is really, I think, sharing examples, sharing real world things. One of the things we talk about are, the Federal Trade Commission looked at over 8 million cases of romance scams, and they shared exactly what the top 10 lies that people share are. And what we do is we break down further. So for example, there's actually a couple common professions that scammers will use. They'll say that they're either in the military or they're like working on an oil rig or something like that. And that might sound like, why would they do that? But the reason is, when you maybe ask to video chat to confirm that they're the person in the pictures, oh, well, hey, I'm in a war zone right now. I can't use my phone. It's against the, whatever. Or, hey, I'm on an oil rig. We have terrible Wi-Fi. And so for somebody who's maybe not, as, into the online dating scene as we've been with our research. So like I said, I worked in the industry for 8 years on the secular and the faith-based side. And so I got to see a lot of this. So to me, it's like the second I hear work on an oil rig, I'm like, maybe there's a couple good Christian men or women out there that work on oil rigs, but 9 times out of 10, that's a red flag for me. But if you're brand new to it and you haven't been educated or experienced this, you might think, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, of course there's not good Wi-Fi. Like, I don't have good Wi-Fi at my house. Of course there's no good Wi-Fi out there. And so it starts to make sense. But by educating people and exposing them to this prior to getting online, I think we can protect a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I love the red flags that you're talking about. So, what's the difference between this app that you have made, and talk about that a little bit,
Sure.
and the app that say like is Tinder? How can that be trustworthy over secular apps?
Right. So we started Higher Bond, which is a Christian dating app for people who value faith as the driving force behind their relationship decisions. Basically, my wife and I started it. We started developing it 2 years ago, and it was built out of a response to the current state of online dating for Christians. It's my wife and I. There's no big and hidden investors or anything like that. We're not a secularly owned company like everything out there. It's just, we're a couple that actually met online who connected initially on how terrible our experiences were as Christians, that we're just passionate about trying to do things differently. And so some of the things that we do different, number one is we do something called batched matching, right? So instead of getting this constant flow of people that you're swiping through like you would on something like Upward, you're getting 3 to 5 matches a day. And when you create your account, you answer 35 questions about your faith, about your lifestyle, things like, how do you feel about R-rated movies? How important is prayer to you? What are your tithing habits? Really to try and connect people on that. But the issue with, like, so Upward is the example I always use because it's the most popular dating app. And they use that swipe style where you're showing a person and you swipe through, swipe, and you indicate whether you like them or not. The problem is the research is showing that swipe dating is causing people to become very quickly addicted to that platform because it creates this dopamine loop where when you get a match, dopamine fires, which is like the feel-good chemical. And so you get that first match and the dopamine fires, and then your brain says, I want more of that. So you keep swiping, and then you get another match and it fires again, but it's not as big of a fire as that first one because it's not as new anymore. It's different. And so you're constantly chasing this high and you just keep swiping more and more. And what it does is you start to have withdrawal symptoms. You start to devolve into what's called doom scrolling. And what they found is that this is what's creating anxiety, depression, emotional burnout, and all this. And the problem is most of the Christian dating apps, including some of the ones that are Christian run, are moving to this style of matchmaking because it's popular. But the problem is if you make ministry decisions based on popularity versus on what's really best for people, you typically are going to run into some issues. And so that's one of the first things that's different. Number two is We manually verify 100% of profiles that come onto our app. It When you log in, you create an account. It usually takes 2 to 3 days before you're actually given access. Most of the other apps, it's as soon as you create your account, within 5 minutes, you can be messaging with people, and there's no way really to verify that that person is the same person who's in the pictures or anything like that. And so that's one of the things that we do that I think is very different. A lot of apps don't do it because it requires more time, more resources, or they just maybe don't care. And the last one I want to share that's different is our approach to inappropriate content. So 100% of photos that get added to Higher Bond are manually approved by an actual human who understands what we believe is like biblically sound modesty, right? So we always say that everyone's got a different view of what's showing too much or whatever. So we've elected just take a very hard line on it. The problem is if you go onto something like Upward and you spend 30 seconds on there, you're going to see a lot of excessive cleavage, sexually suggestive photos, scantily clad people, shirt off, bikini photos and stuff like that. And the problem, I think, just in the Christian context is that you never know who's struggling with things and who that might cause to stumble into a sin that they're dealing with. And so for us, we take a very hard line against that. And that, I think, is one of the biggest differences between us and most of the other apps out there. And again, it's to be understood though, because those big apps are secularly run. So to them, somebody showing a bunch of extra cleavage or a dress with a slit that's cut all the way up their leg, that's completely normal to them. But at least for myself and my wife, we just we take a much more modest approach to it. We think that you can connect more on who you are as a Christian, what makes you unique, and you don't need that other mess kind of clouding the situation.
Wonderful. I'm glad you created this app, you and your wife. And so my next question would be like, now you're taking it into churches. Why would you take it into churches? This whole concept of the state of dating.
We really think that if we don't make a change now, like a massive change, we're going to see some really negative generational impacts from what's happening right now. Because people are, like I said, 20 to 30 million Christians in the US will be going to online dating apps this year. And the problem is, as an example, one of the things that always concerns me is normalization of things that are wrong. So for example, talking about those inappropriate images or the views of modesty, you've got millions of Christians that are using an app that in their mind, they think is just as safe as church and that is promoting the same values as church. And so if they start seeing all these scantily clad photos and things like that, they start to think, okay, well, that's normal. Maybe that's how I should be dressing. Maybe that's okay. Maybe this is what God is okay with. And, because I'm on a Christian app, it must be Christian owned. They must be have Christian values. And so now that starts to become normalized. And the more normalized that behavior becomes, the harder it becomes for the church to kind of fight back against us. And it's not that I think we all know that God doesn't give us rules to punish us or anything like that. He does it to protect us. And so that's really the way that I view. And so I think that if we can get this information into churches' hands, whether they use Higher Bond or not, at least we can protect more people from getting scammed, getting, emotionally hurt, having these feelings of depression, anxiety. I mean, it blows my mind, the research behind this swipe dating and how terrible it is. But the reason all these apps are changing to it is if people are addicted to your app, they're going to spend more money. They're going to buy more things. And that's what these secular apps care about. So they're okay with it. They're like, well, if it makes a few people depressed and gives people extra anxiety, the crazy thing is when you're swiping, your brain actually goes into the fight or flight mode as it's chasing that dopamine rush. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and your cortisol goes up, which is the stress relieving hormone. And it's just it's insane to me that this is okay. But again, it's because of a lack of knowledge. It's not because that people, I talked to a lot of pastors this summer as we were traveling the country, sharing about Higher Bond. And I started talking to them, and a lot of them were recommending Upward to their people. And you just see this feeling of, they felt terrible about it. And I had to tell them, I was like, look, you shouldn't feel bad about it. Like, you've been married for 15 years. Like, you don't date online. You don't know. They do a good job of hiding what it is. And so that's kind of a long way of just saying, I think if we don't get this information out there, that we're going to see some unintended consequences that are going to be generational, and it starts to build this bigger mountain for us to come back from.
Mm-hmm. So you're taking this to the churches? You do it all over the country? You travel to the churches and you do presentations. That's what you're doing?
No, so we've set it up to be completely virtual, right? So what we did is we created about a 40-minute training video that goes into all of this, and it's designed for ministry leaders and for singles. And so basically what the church can do is all they have to do is go to thestateofdating.com, reach out to us and just say, hey, we want to run this event. And we say, cool. And we send them just, hey, what do you guys need? So we send them the training video. We send them the creatives, the flyer templates, if they want social media posts to promote it to their singles, everything like that. So basically all they have to do is go to their congregation and say, hey, 3 Sundays from now at 2 p.m., we're going to run this event called The State of Dating. It's a ministry training. And then they just show up, they show the training video, and then we've got resources and questions for the leaders. They can have them break out into small groups. And our idea about allowing the churches to run the event is that the core materials in that training video, but then, if they have a particular view on dating that they want to add to it, or they think, hey, there's a part that our church really needs to, maybe they had a bunch of people that have been scammed or emotionally hurt or something, and they want to expand on that, it gives them that flexibility to kind of run with it and do it as they want. So really what we're doing now, so we did the first live event where we ran it ourselves. It was virtual, but live last week. And so now what we're doing is just reaching out to churches individually and saying, hey, this is what we've got. We know that serving singles is challenging because we've talked to a lot of pastors, and it's a tough, underserved group, and the pastors know it. And we're just saying, hey, we've got this free resource, let us give it to you and let you and run with it.
Wonderful. So your website says our team has created every necessary resource to equip your church or group to run your very own State of Dating event, which I love. So where can they find out more about you and the State of Dating and get the app?
Absolutely. So for the State of Dating, they just need to go to thestateofdating.com. We've got a nice little 3-minute trailer video that kind of shows some highlights from the training. They can also fill out like an interest form that will send them the link to the training, because we think it's important that the pastors and ministry leaders are able to view the material first, to make sure they're comfortable with it, make sure that it fits with all their belief systems. I don't see there being any problem, but I think that's a lot of pastors will enjoy that. And then after that, we'll send them an email to say, hey, we saw that you wanted to check it out. Like, can we support you? Can we help you run this event? And so, yeah, that's thestateofdating.com. And again, it's completely free. There are no costs. There's nothing like that. And then for the singles that want to check out Higher Bond, they can just go to higherbond.com, or they can go to the App Store and search for Higher Bond.
Wonderful. I'm very interested in this ministry because I really do think that it's going to help a lot of people who, they are looking to, these Christians, they want to find someone who believes the same beliefs as them. Right. They want to be able to trust it, and that's the hard part, trusting it. So what would you like to leave my audience with today?
Start by figuring out, are you called to singledom or not? And if you are, awesome, as Paul talks about. But if not, and you're considering online dating, I would encourage them to check out the State of Dating, because they can watch it as an individual. They don't have to be a pastor or minister. They can watch it themselves, and then maybe they want to share with their church, but don't be discouraged. Set your expectations properly with online dating. It's not a magic lamp. It's not something that supersedes God's timeline. It's merely a tool that he may or may not choose to use. And so I think just doing that proper prep work before you start dating, making sure you're emotionally prepared for it, making sure that you understand the potential risks, whether you're dating online or in person, and getting your heart in the right place. And it can truly, like I said, I met my wife through online dating. And so the results are there. It is possible. And yeah, that's, I think, what I would like to leave them with.
If this ministry has blessed your life, would you like, subscribe, and share this with others? We are here to fulfill the Great Commission. So be sure to come back next time for another episode of The Call with Nancy Sabato. You'll be blessed. Do you listen to the call of God? Because God speaks to you every day. Are you listening to the call?
What sound is heard only by